Hello everyone and welcome to our Mental Health Impact Series show. Today is season 2, episode 25. My name is Aman. I'm a content creator and mental health ambassador here at Reach Out Together. Before we get started today and introduce our very special guest, we have some facts for you. Today's topic of discussion is mental health challenges and intuitive living. But did you know anxiety disorders are the most common mental health illness in the US, affecting 40 million adults in the United States aged 18 and older? Depression is a common mental health disorder. Globally, more than 264 million people of all ages suffer from depression. About 1.7% of the adult US population aged 18 to 54, approximately 2.4 million Americans have panic disorder in a given year. Today, our very special guest is Sanjana. She is a research assistant at the University of Waterloo. Without further ado, welcome Sanjana. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here and to be on this platform and discussing mental health.
We're so happy to have you. So to begin, why don't you start today by telling us a little bit more about yourself and the journey which has brought you here?
Thank you. Yes, of course. So I was born and raised in India, in Chennai, and I moved to Toronto, Canada, when I was 18 to go to school at the University of Toronto. And I think that leaving home at 18, so I went to study for my undergraduate degree, and it was a transformative experience, I think, because up to that point, while I had been aware of the mental health challenges that were affecting me, I didn't really have too much of a vocabulary for them. And I hadn't really had a space to converse about them, or I hadn't heard of people conversing about mental health when I was growing up. And so when I moved to Toronto, there was a lot more just conversation happening about mental health and the importance of maintaining mental well-being. And I think that really showed me that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can your recovery can begin at any time, and there's no judgment or negativity that is associated with talking about mental health, and there doesn't need to be. And so, it was really moving away from home and, being a person of color in this completely new environment that got me started on my own mental health journey. And 7 years in, it's been a phenomenal experience. I love Canada. I think of it as my home, and I've met just the most wonderful people there. I have friends that have become family, and it's been phenomenal. And I think that that's been conducive to just my mental health journey as well. And so what I loved about being, I think having the space to really grow and give yourself the space to grow as well is you get to choose who you interact with and who you're vulnerable with and who you open up to. And I think that, having been a part of conversations about mental health, and having been on also, the receiving end of another person's journey about mental health, it's really showed me how just talking helps, and listening and having an empathetic person to listen to you is just so great. And so, being a part of Reach Out Together and just encouraging your conversations is so wonderful. And it's a privilege to be here and to be a part of this phenomenal. I know I said that word a lot, but it's I think what describes this is a phenomenon of being together and being vulnerable together. And I think that's hugely beneficial to everybody that's on their mental health journey.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was rightly said. Obviously, given that we, at the moment, a lot of us are living in a global pandemic, people are way more anxious than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Along with the social anxiety from your experiences, how do you know if you're experiencing it?
I think so. For me, it was a feeling of, and I think this is kind of a nerd reference, but in Lord of the Rings, Bilbo Baggins talks about how he feels like too much butter stretched, or a little butter stretched over too much bread. Got it at the end. A little butter stretched over too much bread. So it's when you feel just very weary, when you're not able to fully be present with everything that's happening around you, your thoughts are racing. Oftentimes there's physical manifestations of your anxiety where you start to climb up, your heart races, you start to feel breathless. I think those are the more serious, or just I think if you look at like on a color spectrum, this would be sort of like code red anxiety, right? And I think just the initial sort of symptoms of that would be feeling like there's too much going on and that you're not able to process everything that's going on, and it feels a little bit out of control. It can feel a little isolating. You feel like you're all alone in your struggle. And I think those are some of the types of anxiety that you feel. You tend to overthink, just in terms of social anxiety. I think that you question your interactions with people, whether that's, through a platform like Zoom or social media, or if it's in person. I think there is that element of constantly questioning yourself and just being very on edge and feeling like your adrenaline's constantly just going. You're almost in like a state of being ready for attack, right? It's I think that sort of encompasses all of anxiety. Of course, I will say anxiety can look like many different things to different people. And this is not, by any means an all-inclusive list of what it can look like for someone. But this is, I think, an overarching view of how it might feel.
Thank you. I think you literally put that perfectly. I wanted to ask, given that that anxiety is so massive and, like you said, it can range from different things, what would you say are a few ways that people can cope with anxiety?
That's an excellent question. So, and I think that's where you sort of start to think about a journey in mental health. It can be as simple as box breathing. So this is a technique that my first therapist taught me when I was in therapy for anxiety and panic disorders. So box breathing is where you picture a box. You can do this anywhere. You can do this at any time. It's not something that you have to specifically make time for. So that's really great when you're in the moment experiencing a panic attack or an anxiety attack. You just think of a box. So you breathe for 4, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, and then hold it for 4. So you go in a box, the same count of breath for all 4. So you inhale for 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, and hold it for 4. And it really just helps you to come back to that breath and that place of grounding, I think. And that's a great way of like an SOS, I need to control my anxiety right now kind of move. But it's also a great place to start for someone that's just about starting on their own mental health journey, right? And then there's also ways of grounding yourself. So I think you can think about in the moment, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can, I believe, taste, or no, 2 things you can smell and 1 thing you can taste, and just go through those senses. And that's really helpful as well to kind of ground you into where you are, because it can be quite scary in the moment when you feel like you're out of control and nothing feels um, real in a moment. And so that's a very grounding thing to do as well. And I think those two are a real two very, the breath especially, I think is a very effective technique to help bring down that anxiety, even if it doesn't go away completely. If you're at a level 10, you could be at a level 9.5, and even that's an improvement, right? And so those are two techniques that I found have been massively helpful for me. And then when you are sort of in a space where you do have, I think, the time and also just the emotional capacity to process what had happened, you can then try to figure out what your triggers may have been. And it could have been anything from, hearing a sound or having too many notifications going off on your phone, or, deadlines at work. And I think it's a lot like putting a puzzle together. It's just you have all these pieces, and when it clicks in, you sort of feel better, right? And so just identifying your triggers can be beneficial, because then oh, this is a trigger. I can be prepared for it, or I can try to mitigate it from happening. And I think that so it's a journey. Triggers aren't identified in a day or a week. It takes years and years, and sometimes your triggers change, and sometimes what used to be a trigger isn't anymore, and you suddenly find that there's something new, and you sort of have to ponder why that might have been. And that's where kind of the journey comes into play, where it can look different for different people. It can look, your own timelines are yours and yours only, and so you do need to respect yourself and your health in the moment, and treat your anxiety with the respect and the time that it deserves, and work on that in a holistic and very compassionate way, I think.
Thank you, Sanjana. I can't tell you how helpful that was. So much knowledge you have just given us. So thank you so much.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Especially the box method. I think I'm definitely going to try that myself, because I feel like when you're going through anxiety and when you're feeling it, you forget just to ground yourself and to get back in the moment. Your head is going different directions, and you forget that sometimes you just need to stay in the present moment.
Exactly right. And I think you said it very, very well as well. It's about bringing yourself back into that moment, and really focusing on, because our breath is something that we can control very implicitly. We're born controlling it. It's the force of our life, right? And so it really does help to bring you back to that place of peace that's within you. So it's definitely helpful as the toolkit against anxiety.
Amazing. We've got a couple of questions. So
Mm-hmm.
the first one is, what is the science behind breathing? How does deep breathing help with anxiety management?
So physiologically, I could address this from a physiological perspective, and then I could also sort of talk about some of the for me would have been the psychological and spiritual aspects of breathing as well. So physiologically, when you're in that sympathetic state, right? So there's the sympathetic nervous system, which prepares you, it's for flight or fight. So it prepares you to, in a situation where you're going to be attacked, it prepares you to either fight back or flee, right? And it's evolutionarily, you can think of this as like a survival mechanism. We needed this when we were hunters and gatherers. You're not going to stand there and negotiate with a lion that's running at you. You're going to run away. And so, it's very favorable for us to have that mechanism. But in a world where we aren't getting attacked by lions, and we aren't, having to either fight or flee, that mechanism it still exists in our bodies and in our brains. And so, when it kicks into gear, immediately there's this surge of adrenaline, and all these physiological changes happen. Your breath quickens, your muscles tense, you get ready to like run or fight. And slowing down your breathing is just your body's, it's a physiological feedback to tell your brain, hey, I'm relaxed and you don't have to do this. We're not getting attacked right now. We're okay. We're safe. We're good. Right. And so focusing on your exhale, especially where you really release the tension that you're holding in places in your body, it tells your body to go into a parasympathetic phase where it's about resting and digesting. And so it's going from fighting and fleeing to we're okay, we're safe, we're in a safe place, no one's attacking us, we're fine. And that really helps to bring down those physiological symptoms that you may have been feeling where your heart's racing, you're breathless. And that, I think, helps to, in turn, if your thoughts are racing, bring you back as well to focusing on your breath instead of focusing on whatever is going on around you. You focus on counting those numbers, you focus on the senses, you focus on the exhale, which is really important to bring you back to that place of peace that's already within you. And so thinking about it from a psychological perspective, your trigger, for example, let's say your trigger was an angry email from your boss. You're worried, your feelings may have been hurt. And for you to kind of go from, oh my God, I have to respond to this immediately, or I have to feel angry, or I have to feel, whatever hundreds of things you're feeling in the moment. When you come back to that place of peace, you can better process those emotions. You can better sit with whatever it is you're feeling and really allow yourself to feel those things. And then when you are ready to go from that place of understanding and peace instead of a place of tension and just feeling like you have to be in this attack mode or in this I have to run away mode, you then come back to, okay, this is okay, we're safe. And it's, again, reaching out from that place of peace and safety as opposed to a place of fear and anxiety. And I think, so I've been a yoga practitioner for some time now, and it really, in yoga, it's breath is the force of life. It's what energizes everything in our universe. And so, having that focus on the breath is what gives us our life force and our life energy. And I think that when you remind yourself that is what is giving you your life, you bring it back when you're feeling out of sorts and when you're feeling on edge, you bring it back to re-energize you and to bring you back to that place of balance and that place where you can more healthily process your own emotions and process the world around you.
Thank you so much. That was perfectly put.
Thank you.
I know that one of the topics that you wanted to shed light upon today was panic disorders. So what would you say are some signs and symptoms for someone who could be possibly experiencing one?
So I was on a plane when I had my first panic attack, and I thought I was dying. It is a very, very physical manifestation of anxiety and that flight or fight response. And so I literally felt like I was having a heart attack. My left side was numb, but my chest was hurting. My heart was racing. I could feel every pound of my heart going from like a normal rhythm to extremely accelerated. And there was no way for me to control it. And so I literally felt like I was going to die. And I think that is a symptom of an extreme panic attack, and it could be coupled with nausea. It could be coupled with feeling that you're going to pass out because of your breathlessness. And those are some of the more extreme symptoms of a panic attack. And having that happen to you is very scary, and it can be very, you don't feel like you're in control at all. You feel very much like your life is at risk. And so, if you are experiencing those, it is possible to come out of them. It is possible to regain a sense of balance. But for me, I had to really tap into, my support network, my therapists, my psychiatrist, just really get as much help as I could to manage the panic symptoms. And sometimes you do need to tap into those resources like medication and figure out what works best for you in the moment. And also long term to help with that, because that is a more extreme manifestation of anxiety.
Sanjana, I just want to say I really respect you for being able to talk about your experiences with panic attacks. That takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength.
Thank you so much.
Secondly, I wanted to ask, what tips would you give someone who is experiencing frequent panic disorders?
I think so. This is something that I would encourage anyone experiencing these to get help. It's not easy dealing with them on your own, and like I said, everyone's journey looks different. So if you are experiencing a panic disorder, it does help to reach out and get that support going. So for me, that looks like reaching out to a family physician or a general physician at first to really talk about my symptoms, because you don't want there to be any extraneous physical symptoms that you're perhaps not addressing as well, right? So you do need to see a medical professional before you can assess kind of what your treatment is going to look like, and rule out any physical symptoms and physical possible challenges first. And so see a family physician, see a GP, and they will likely refer you on to mental health professionals that can help you as well. And it does really help to have a mental health professional that you trust, that you can work with. And this does not take away from support networks like your friends, your family, and anyone that you can trust and that you can have an honest conversation with and be vulnerable with about what you're going through, because it's so important to be able to talk about your experiences, because I think that makes them less scary in ways when you actually just say it out loud, right? It just brings them to a place where it's like, okay, I was able to speak about this. It's less blown up in my mind and possibly given a more realistic form. And so for me, conversations were, hugely helpful. And I really urge anyone going through this, I feel, my heart goes out to you. Everyone is on our own journey. We need to treat ourselves with the same compassion and empathy that we would treat someone else that's going through the same thing, right? And you wouldn't tell someone that had, a fever or a flu to just get over it or not seek out help. But some of the responses to mental health challenges do look like that. And so, any mental health challenge is not the be all end all of your life. There is a light at the end of the tunnel for everybody. And I think just, taking that time to really look at what your recovery needs to look like for you, whether it's seeking out medical help, seeking out support groups, therapy, group therapy. There are so many treatment modalities out there, and whatever works for you, I think, is the best for you. And it doesn't have to look like something that anyone else is going through, and it doesn't have to only be one thing for the rest of your life. It's always changing, just as we are. And so it's important to tap into your intuition and tap into what you're feeling in the moment and what you need in the moment in order for you to be able to give yourself that time and just whatever you need to recover and to live your best life and live your most fulfilled life. And so anyone going through, a panic disorder and an anxiety disorder is so brave. Like you're amazing for just waking up and getting out of bed in the morning. Like, go you're alive. You've lived to fight another day. Like that's enough. You are enough, right? Like, I think reminding ourselves of that is also hugely important, and just making sure that you're putting your mental well-being at a place of importance. Of course, physical well-being is very important as well. The two are so intertwined, that really advocating for yourself and your mental health, and treating everybody with empathy and compassion. You never know what someone's going through, right? And so I think just treating everybody with empathy and compassion, and respect, and seeking help when you need to. It's never too late, and it's never too early either. You don't have to have a panic disorder or anxiety disorder to ask for help. You can just want to talk to a mental health professional, because going to the gym you don't have to be going through diabetes to go to the gym. You just go for a run or go to the gym, right? It's the same thing. It's I think we need to prioritize our mental health in the same way that we perhaps do physical health, and really have these conversations. This is great. This is a great platform to be talking about mental health and talking about panic and anxiety disorders, and just being able to be vulnerable, and seeing that it's okay to be vulnerable, I think, is in itself a huge step in the right direction.
Thank you, Sanjana. You put that so perfectly. But I also want to thank you, because the fact that you're here, we are able to have conversations like this. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm now going to do a rapid fire round of some questions.
Okay.
Answer whatever comes into your head. Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
To begin with, what does it mean to live intuitively?
I think it means being in touch with yourself and your most authentic feelings and thoughts. It means respecting those feelings and thoughts, and knowing that it's okay, whatever you're feeling is okay, and whatever you're going through in a moment is valid and deserves to be respected and processed. And it's also knowing, I think, the truest path forward for yourself. It does take a bit of I think, soul searching to come to that place where you can recognize what the truest, most resonant form of the world and the way forward looks like for you. But when you do get that sense of just self-recognition, it's very helpful, and it's often the best way to approach life and your mental health journey.
Amazing. Okay, if you had a mic and the whole world could hear you, what would you say?
Be kind to one another.
I love that.
Be kind to the world. Be kind to one another in the world.
What are your top 3 self-care routines?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this would be yoga for sure, and long bath, and vegan ice cream.
I love that. What is your favorite book at the moment?
At the moment, oh my goodness. So that's hard. I'm usually reading like 3 or 4 at a time. So I recently read Education of an Idealist. It's a memoir of Samantha Power, who is the US ambassador to the UN, and she writes about how to live in our world, and how to be an advocate for other people, and how to live with compassion and with respect, and how to help in any way that you can. And I just think that it's a balm for the times that we're living in. She talks about just some very practical ways to help in a world where it sometimes feels like you're too small to help, or you don't have the agency to help, but you really can. And so that's a book that I recommend to everybody. It's called The Education of an Idealist.
Thank you. I'll definitely check that out. What changes would you like to see in our education system, workplace system, and cultural system?
I think I'd like to see a lot less of just this sense of your deadlines and your work and your grades and your whatever it is, whether it's monetary goals or any type of extraneous professional or educational goal come before your mental and physical health. I think that it needs to be made very much a lot clearer to people that their health and their mental well-being and physical well-being is more important than any job or test or competition or whatever it is. And I think that can be at any level. It doesn't have to just be at a workplace level or a school. It's just any sort of situation is because our lives are all we have, and we need to live them in the healthiest and most respectful way. And so if you're constantly told that a work deadline or that a school deadline is more important than your well-being, that's wrong. Like let's not do that anymore. That would be a great, I think, step in the right direction for people to learn. And also, of course, the importance of empathy and compassion for others as well, because there's just a lot of division in our world right now. And if we just had, an ounce more empathy and compassion and respect for one another, I think a lot of communication issues and division we could reach at least a place of understanding, if not agreement, right? And I think just having that be a goal of treating differences not as something that divides us, but an opportunity to learn about one another and come to an understanding and have empathy for one another would be great to see in all of these different spaces in the world.
Thank you, Sanjana. We are running out of time, but I will quickly ask you 2 questions. So firstly, what kind of lifestyle changes will help with the symptoms of something like depression?
So I think that exercise definitely helps. Even if you're able to get out for 10 minutes on a walk, it releases a lot of those feel-good endorphins, which can very, very much improve how it feels to live with depression. And also eating right, making sure you're getting a lot of, good vegetables and fruits in. And I know this is very generic advice, but it could not be stressed more. It's very easy to scoff at, but cutting out processed foods and cutting out, I'm not saying you should never eat sugar, please by all means do, but just focusing on what makes you feel the best is I think very helpful in treating something like depression from a lifestyle perspective. It's one tool in your toolkit that is in addition to many of these other modalities that we've talked about. But yes, as far as lifestyle goes, it couldn't be said enough. I think is just having a diet of mostly non-processed foods and getting a little bit of movement in your day, whether it's a walk or skipping, jumping rope or whatever it looks like for you. It's totally fine, even if it's like doing child's pose for 5 minutes. It's still movement, I think. So. Yeah.
No, I love that. Thank you. I second that 100%. Last question. What is the one message you would like to share with the audience tuned in? Perhaps someone who is going through a rough time and needs to hear something?
You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. I think that's my advice.
Thank you so much. Sanjana, it's been so lovely to have you here today.
Lovely to be a part of this.
No, thank you so much. If people want to connect and find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. My handle is Papagena Viago. That's PAPAGENA VIAGO. And I'm also on LinkedIn. My email, well, I don't know if people love emailing, but I love to receive emails. So if anyone wants to email me, feel free to do so as well. My email is on my LinkedIn. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate
Thank you for
you.
having me. It's been so great. Thank you, Reach Out Together, for this wonderful platform and place of sharing and vulnerability that we can all be a part of. It's so important.
100%. Sanjana, do you know what our logo stands for? So it's our logo.
So yes, so I had to learn this from a YouTube video on your channel. It's ASL for together, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay, perfect. I got it right.
So it means together in American Sign Language, but we use the color orange in the background because in color healing therapy, it brings out feelings of warmth and happiness. And our vision at Reach Out Together is to heal the world together, community by community, one conversation by one conversation. And I feel like we did that today. So thank you so much.
I really hope we did. Thank you. You guys are amazing.
To the rest of you who are still tuned in, if you have an experience that you'd like to share, please get in touch via email at ankita@reachouttogether.com. We want to hear from you. That's a wrap of our discussion. Thank you so much.